The top stories: Ethiopia calls for dialogue, peace, and sovereign use of its natural resources. And Addis-based development partners observe Ethiopia's dialogue process. Hello and a very warm welcome to EBC English News. With the news, I'm Shifar Raulako, and thank you for watching us. Now, from a 19th century military confrontation to today's diplomatic and geopolitical tensions, the struggle over the Nile has remained deeply intertwined with the relationship between the two countries. Ethiopia says its right to develop its natural resources must be balanced with regional cooperation and dialogue, not confrontation. For more on that, here is our staff reporter, Masarat Kiros.
Former United Nations Secretary General and Egyptian diplomat Boutros Ghali once said, "The next war in the Middle East will not be fought over politics, but over the water of Nile." To some, these words may sound like a prophecy, but to the peoples in Cairo's halls of power, they have long served as a guiding principle of policy. The Nile River, rising from the great mountains of Ethiopia, has flowed for centuries as a blessing that sustains life. Yet this pure source of life has long been turned into a front in a war of jealousy and psychological pressure by rulers downstream who depend on it. Let us pause here and ask ourselves, when will we finally break free from this century-old historical hostility and freely make use of our own natural resources? How can we strengthen our shared peace through dialogue rather than allowing it to be tested through armed conflict? And how can we reverse Cairo's destructive doctrine? We'll return to these questions later. Egyptian politicians, viewing the source of the Nile as a major existential threat, have left no stones unturned in their efforts to claim exclusive control over the Nile. For many years, a covert strategy aimed at weakening our country has been developed within the halls of power in Cairo. There was even a chapter in history when this struggle for control was tested directly on the battlefield. In the 19th century, Khedive Ismail Pasha launched a major campaign to invade Ethiopia, driven by the dream of establishing a greater Egypt. However, at the Battle of Gundet and Gura, he suffered a major and humiliating defeat at the hands of our heroic Ethiopian forefathers. Their extraordinary courage brought Cairo's military ambition to a decisive end. After this historical defeat, however, Egyptian strategists were forced to change their approach. Within Egypt's foreign policy and security establishment, an enduring, largely unwritten principle has persisted for years. A stronger Ethiopia means a weaker Egypt, while a stable Ethiopia represents an existential threat to Cairo. What is remarkable is that although the leaders occupying Egypt's political establishments have changed over the years, Cairo's policy itself has hardly changed at all. Egyptian leaders, including Gamal Abdel Nasser, Hosni Mubarak, and Sisi, both promoted Arab nationalism and armed insurgents in our region, or have worked relentlessly to encircle Ethiopia within a regional security framework by establishing military agreements with countries along the Red Sea and in the downstream Nile Basin. For Cairo's rulers, the Nile is not merely a river. They repeatedly tell the world that it is a matter of their political, economical, and national survival. Yet this is a misleading propaganda narrative. The reality is different. Although roughly 85% of the Nile's water originates in our highlands, Egypt has continued to exert pressure while claiming exclusive ownership of the river's water. So what is the solution? The national dialogue process we have begun at this time has caused considerable alarm in Cairo, even keeping its leaders awake at night. The reason is simple. If our internal problems, historic grievances, and political differences can be resolved through dialogue around a table, the sound of a gunfire can finally disappear for good. And once the guns fall silent, our country will be able to devote its full capacity, energy, and resources to development and economic growth. When the national dialogue is fully concluded, the opening through which proxy warfare enters our country will be permanently closed. We must therefore recognize that every gunshot fired within our own country ultimately benefits our historical adversaries. This generation has a responsibility to hand the next generation a great sovereign nation, a country whose people are united and reconciled, capable of withstanding external pressure, and worthy of pride of the generations to come.
In another development, Ethiopia has rejected what it describes as renewed Egyptian efforts to misrepresent its position on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam GERD and the development of the Nile River. The response follows recent statements and media reports from Egypt that, according to Addis Ababa, have selectively interpreted remarks made by Ethiopia's Minister of Water and Energy, Habtamu Ittefa. Ethiopia says its position remains consistent, maintaining that the development of the Nile is based on its sovereign right to pursue economic development, the principle of equitable and reasonable utilization of shared waters, and the objective of generating benefits for the wider region. Minister Habtamu Ittefa has emphasized that the GERD is a major engineering project built according to internationally recognized standards and operating at full capacity for electricity generation. He has rejected claims that Ethiopia's development of its water resources threatens downstream countries, stressing instead the principle of equitable and reasonable use of shared waters. Ethiopia insists that it is not seeking to monopolize the Nile. Rather, it says it is exercising its legitimate right to develop its water resources for electricity generation, economic transformation, and national development, while respecting the legitimate interests of other Nile Basin countries. At the regional level, Ethiopia points to practical examples of cooperation with neighboring countries. The minister cited Ethiopia's daily supply of about 100,000 cubic meters of potable water to Djibouti and electricity exports to neighboring states as examples of how the country's development can generate benefits beyond its borders. The dispute also reflects a long-standing disagreement over historical Nile water agreements. Ethiopia has repeatedly rejected the idea that agreement concluded without the participation of all basin countries should permanently determine the development rights of upstream states. The GERD dispute, therefore, goes beyond the dam itself. It raises a broader question about the future of Nile Basin governance, whether the basin will continue to be shaped by historical arrangements and competing unilateral claims, or move toward cooperation, equitable utilization, and recognition of the development rights of all basin countries. As criticism from Cairo continues, Ethiopia is calling for the GERD debate to be based on facts, scientific evidence, and the principles of equitable water use. Addis Ababa argues that portraying its development ambitions as a threat only increases tensions and makes regional cooperation more difficult. Moving on to other stories, representatives of Ethiopia's international development partners have observed the ongoing National Dialogue Conference and received a briefing on the progress and major development of the process. The delegation comprises representatives from various countries supporting the Ethiopian National Dialogue Commission with the support coordinated by the United Nations Development Programme and Ethiopia's Ministry of Finance. During their visit to the conference venue, members of the delegation toured the site and observed the national dialogue process as it is currently unfolding. Commissioners of the Ethiopian National Dialogue Commission also briefed the delegation on major development and key activities undertaken as part of the National Dialogue Conference. The visit enabled the development partners to gain a first-hand view of the ongoing process and received an update directly from the Commission on its progress. Meanwhile, Ethiopia's National Dialogue Conference has moved into a further stage of reconciling recommendations developed across its 8 working groups with a 120-member consolidation team presenting harmonized proposals back to the respective groups for a final input. The 120-member team, comprising representatives from each of the 8 working groups, presented the consolidated recommendations organized for each group. The working groups reviewed the proposals under their respective agendas, provided their final inputs, and returned them to the designated draft members to prepare the final recommendations. The consolidation process has been underway over the past several days, focusing on preventing contradictions and repetitions among the recommendations and bringing ideas raised across the groups into a coherent set of proposals. And finally, Ethiopia is stepping up efforts to prevent child wasting by strengthening government leadership, increasing investment in nutrition, improving health systems, and expanding community engagement, Mabratu Masabo, Chief of Staff at the Ministry of Health, said. He made the remarks at the first regional review and learning meeting on child wasting that opened in Addis Ababa. The 4-day meeting has brought together representatives from 11 African countries, regional and international organizations, and development partners. According to him, the country is strengthening early identification of nutrition risks, community-based systems, and access to essential health and nutrition services and supplies. Ethiopia is also pursuing a multi-sectoral approach to malnutrition by bringing together ministries and institutions working in areas including agriculture, education, social protection, women's affairs, and disaster risk management.
Ethiopian government owns this program and want to work as one of our greatest priority agenda. Our health system is still in progress, but we are making it stronger every day. Ending child wasting requires more than treating wasting, which is an acute problem. And we want to prevent, and the prevention is remain at the heart of Ethiopia's program in nutrition roadmaps. And also it remains for the roadmap seasons. And detecting risks early, strengthening community-based systems, ensuring access to essential services and nutrition supplies.
Mabratu also noted that food insecurity, poverty, climate-related shocks, and displacement are among the factors contributing to malnutrition, requiring coordinated interventions beyond the health sector. For his part, WHO representative and head of mission to Ethiopia, Professor Francis Chisaka Kasolo, said Africa continues to face one of the world's highest burdens of child wasting. Have a listen to this.
Achieving global nutrition targets will require sustained political commitment, smarter and more predictable investments, stronger partnerships, and national systems that can prevent wasting, detecting it early, and provide timely, quality care to every child who needs it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching EBC English News. Now a quick recap of the top stories. Ethiopia calls for dialogue, peace, and sovereign use of its natural resources. And Addis-based development partners observe Ethiopia's dialogue processes. All the viewers, that's all the news there is for now. Thanks indeed for watching us. Bye-bye.